Hello people, I just wanted to tell you about a purchase that I got a couple of weeks ago on eBay. It's ABBA, Oro Grandes Exitos. It's obviously a Spanish edition of the ABBA Gold album, but it's not quite the ABBA Gold album, even though the title means ABBA Gold Greatest Hits. In fact, what it is a reissue of an album that came out in 1980 called Gracias por la Música, Thank You for the Music. And Jetta and Frida recorded some of their songs, their best known songs, up to 1979 in Spanish, while Bjorn and Benny were away writing for the Super Trooper album. And this was released, I think, round about August 1980, something like that. It's a shame that, because this was released in 1992, and it's a shame that they didn't include some of the songs from the Visitors that they recorded in Spanish as well, because they did do, after this album, they did do a couple of songs, I think one or two from Super Trooper and the Visitors, that would suit the Spanish language very well. They got together with a couple of translators, I think called Buddy and Mary McCluskey, I think that was their name. They're not actually credited on this, so I don't really know. And what I'm here to tell you about really is the songs on here, whether or not some of the anomalies actually exist on some of these songs that I've pointed out on my other videos. So here we go. Fernando. Well, Fernando sounds to me like a completely different mix, because although this was Spanish, it wasn't for primarily for the Spanish market, it was for the South American market, and they obviously go for their sort of very fluty style music, and the flute is far more to the fore in this mix of Fernando than it is in the UK mix. And the first glitch that I pointed out at 6 seconds doesn't appear to be there, because it seems to come out of more silence, so it's so low that you really wouldn't hear it. But what does occur after the first chorus, just as the flute is going into the sort of the melodic interlude before verse 2 or verse 3 as it would be, there is that little sort of glitch where the first couple of notes of the flute were taken off by accident, I think. So that's Fernando. Chiquitita I'm saving, because I've got a video to do about that soon, so I'm not going to spoil the surprise. So you'll hear about the anomalies on the Spanish one when I do the English version. Gracias por la Música, likewise. La Reina del Baile. Now that used to be called Reina Danzante, and it's actually Dancing Queen. One thing about the Spanish versions of the songs is that the titles didn't mean necessarily what they mean in English, and also if a Spanish title didn't fit in with the tune, then they used something else. And Reina Danzante is really what the song was called when it first came out. They retitled it at some point, must have been after the band split up, to La Reina del Baile, which is the Queen of the Dance. I think it's a completely different mix from the regular English version. Get hold of it. It's actually got the missing verse in it. All those people on YouTube that have tried to piece together a mix with the missing verse, and often not very successfully, in fact more or less totally unsuccessfully, here it is. All right, I think that this is an earlier mix dating from probably late 75, and there's the missing verse. There are 4 verses of Dancing Queen on here, and it's also 11 seconds longer. The mix is completely differently balanced. The glissando at the beginning is totally different. So I think that this is an earlier take, and there are still edits. Moats Piano 2 put up a video in response to my Dancing Queen Anomalies video, which showed the same place in the Spanish thing. So there are edits there, and also at about 1 minute 26 seconds, where the first verse is joined into the first chorus, I pointed out that the violin cacks out, especially if you listen to it out of phase. It just totally cacks out, and they've obviously, in this version of it, tried to cover that up with an extra bit of piano, which is not in the same place in the second verse and doesn't exist on the English version. So they obviously were up to trying to hide something at that point where I pointed that out. So that's Dancing Queen. Get it. My one was only $1.99 off eBay, so no excuse. Elinvar, which is Move On, Spanish title literally means the walking. That's got the same anomaly in it that's on some of the versions of ABBA the album that I've heard. It's not too obvious on vinyl, but certainly any of the CD mixes of it that I've heard have got this terrible jump in the second instrumental passage. So listen out for that as well. Dame, 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 that's Gimme, Gimme, Gimme. Pretty much similar to the mix that was released in England. And probably because it was so recent at the time. Some of the earlier ones they presumably had to reconstruct. Estoy Soñando, that's I Have a Dream, still has those terribly distorted bits. When Frida sings Creo en Angelitos, I Believe in Angels, in the second and third verses, it's still incredibly distorted. But on this one, they seem to have put in 2 extra beats as she's singing that. Well, 2 firm crotchet beats anyway, with drums and bass on there that I don't think are on the regular mix. So have a spot out for those. Mamma Mia, pretty much similar, but slightly remixed from the normal one. Same with Hasta Manana. You see, Hasta Manana wouldn't necessarily qualify for a greatest hits of ABBA, although it was on the first greatest hits album, the one with them kissing on the bench on it. But I suppose because it sounds quite Spanish, they put it on there. It's got a Spanish title, which they could keep to the same thing. And that seems to be, again, slightly remixed, but it's essentially the same mix, or it sounds like it. Conociéndome, conociéndote, which is knowing me, knowing you. Now, you try and get that into the syllables to sing knowing me, knowing you. And actually, Frida doesn't. She sings solo tu, only you, sola yo, only I, instead. They've tried, I think, to cover up 1 or 2 anomalies in there with some extra guitar passages. There's a bit in the verse 1 where in the regular English mix you hear a dum 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 on sort of low piano or bass or something, and here that's done by guitars, so it is again slightly different. And I think they try to cover over the walking through an empty house and in these old familiar rooms join by putting those extra guitar passages in, but essentially it's the same mix. I can't really tell too much at the moment because I've got this rotten ear infection, which means I can't really hear very much in my right ear, so I'm not going to start sticking headphones on or anything like that. Now, I have to say that I'm really interested in this because as a boy, I learned Spanish and took it up to GCSE O-level. And in fact, I did get an O-level in Spanish. And I was really quite excited about this when it came out because I was, just this. And here I'm talking about, when I say this first came out, I mean the original Gracias por la Música on the Septima label, which I've long since lost. And the pronunciation surprised me because, as I say, it wasn't intended for the Spanish market, and so they don't. The Spanish C before an I or an E is usually pronounced th. In Latin America, it's not. It's pronounced s, and the same with Z's, and which would normally be a th. In Spain. Are a s sort of sound in Latin America. It's a shame that I haven't got the original Septima Gracias por la Música album to compare it with. But there you go, guys. A brilliant purchase. I recommend it.